Welcome back everyone. This is video number 3 in the Law of One series. In this video we're going to talk about the 7 densities, the kinds of consciousness within each of the 7 densities, the nature of the 7 densities, and then we'll go into a more in-depth conversation about Earth's current transition from the 3rd density into the 4th density. And again, these are meant to be watched sequentially, so if you haven't watched videos 1 and 2, please go do so now so that this will make more sense for you. Good. So what are the densities? What do we mean when we say 7 densities? Well, in video 2 we learned about the first 3 distortions of the Law of One. First distortion being that of free will, the freedom of will, of exploration. The infinite creator discerned a concept. The concept was finiteness, right? Something that was finite. So from that freedom of will, of awareness, the creator uses the energy of love, unconditional love, or what we can call the logos, to focus its energies and to kind of generate the seed concept of how it wants to explore itself. Once that has been established through the 2nd distortion of love, the 3rd distortion comes into play, which is that of light. Everything that we experience in the physical universe is created of light. Different photons of light vibrating at different frequencies, which generate an infinite number of responses to that vibration. Good. So from this light concept, we have what are called the densities, right? So these are different densities of light. You can think of the densities as vibrational bands of energy that we have to go through in order to evolve properly. So I mentioned in the first video that you could think of the densities like schools, right? So we have 7 densities, so we have 7 grades. We're trying to graduate from the 7th grade in the end, right? To go into what would be called the 8th grade, which we don't know too much about. It's the next octave of experience, the next level of experience, which even Ra doesn't know too much about. Good. So we're currently in 3rd grade, trying to graduate to the 4th grade. So we'll go through the densities really quick. So Ra says in session 16, question and answer 21, they're talking about their journey, and in the middle of that discussion they give a quick, very nice, brief explanation of the 7 densities, right? So they say that the first density is a cycle of awareness. 2nd, the cycle of growth. 3rd, the cycle of self-awareness. 4th, the cycle of love or understanding. 5th, the cycle of light or wisdom. 6th, the cycle of light, love, light, or unity. 7th, the gateway cycle. 8th, the octave, which moves into a mystery we do not plumb. Good. So first we have the cycle of awareness, right? So these are the first elementary building blocks of what we know of as planet Earth, right? So on Earth, the first density is the 4 elements: air, fire, water, and earth. These elements are aware of themselves, but they don't have the freedom of growth, right? They just are what they are. Air is air, water is water, fire is fire, earth is earth. This is the first density, the basic chemical components that will allow the other densities to progress and to evolve. Good. So 2nd density is a cycle of growth. Now 2nd density is essentially any advanced mineral life, like crystals. What we know of is crystals, or gemstones, healing gemstones, plants, and animals. So these entities are aware of themselves, and they are growing and they are striving for 3rd density. So you can look at plants, and there's been plenty of scientific research to show that plants are absolutely aware and conscious. In David Wilcock's book, The Source Field Investigations, I forget who the scientist was and what the name of the experiment was, but basically he was doing some experimentation with, he was hooking up electrodes to plants and kind of reading evaluating their vibration based on certain stimuli. And he had a plant hooked up to one of these devices, and he was standing on the other side of the room, and he thought about burning the plant to see what kind of response the plant would have. When he had just the thought of burning the plant started registering like this on the reading chart, right? So plants are aware, absolutely. They can be communicated with, and they can the Native Americans called them the plant people. They called the stones the rock people, right? And of course, we all know of animals. Dogs and cats are hyper aware. They're very aware. Some are very smart. Some are smarter than others, but they're definitely aware, and they have the ability to move a little bit. They have a little freedom of will, right? Like you can tell a dog to come to you, and it won't just come to you because you're saying so. It can walk the other way, but they're still run completely by instinct, right? If you have food in your hand, the chances are the dog's going to come sprinting towards you because it's running on its animalistic nature. So it doesn't have freedom of consciousness. It's not totally self-conscious. It's just conscious up to a certain point, right? So this is the second density. Third density is the cycle of self-awareness. That is for us on this planet, being a human being. We are aware of ourselves. We are aware that we are conscious and that we have total free will to move in any way that we want, and we are not strictly bound by our animalistic nature, or what's sometimes called the reptilian brain. Many people are still operating from just that point, but we don't have to. We have so many things that we can do and practice to move out of that into a higher order of understanding and a higher order, higher ethical ways of being, right? So complete opportunity for, just say full opportunity for complete self-awareness exists in the third density. We as humans are in this third density. We are third dimensional, third density beings. Good. After this, we go into the fourth, which is the cycle of love or understanding. So this is where we choose to either love ourselves or love others. Right, this is the choice we have to make in third density, and we're going to go into this more in a bit. The fourth density is the density of love, or what we call understanding. So in the next density, we've made the choice, and we've either chosen to serve others or serve ourselves. So you can think of the densities beyond third as a refining of the choice that is made in the third density. Right, so fourth density of love, learning the ways of love. Fifth density, the cycle of light or wisdom. So in this density, deeper understandings and deeper levels of wisdom are strived for and attained. Right, so love isn't always wisdom oriented, right? We have the phrase love is foolish, love is blind, and so unconditional love doesn't necessarily mean that there's much wisdom attached to it. Like we can maybe, I've thought about this a lot, I've meditated on this a lot, but we can look at Jesus as an example. He came, we'll do a video on Jesus, but Ross says that he came from the fourth density, and he was from the very, very highest sub-level of fourth density going into fifth, right? So he came to the earth to give an example of what true unconditional fourth density vibrational love was, and he did that. He delivered himself to be put to death, and while he was dying on the cross, he blessed those who were killing him, and he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they do." Right? So, or forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Right? So he was able to give the vibration of love full expression, but you could maybe argue that there wasn't much wisdom in that process, because if he was 33 years old, he could have had a whole life of teaching and helping others to perhaps develop the level of understanding that he had. But that wasn't his mission, and that was not what he felt he was here to do. He felt that he was here to give the unconditional love vibration and to sort of plant that seed on the planet. So that's what he did. Good. So in fifth density, we're seeking for wisdom. In the sixth density, which is where Ra is operating from, they're currently exploring the sixth density. They say it's the cycle of light, love, light, or unity. So in this density, love and wisdom are combined, and we're attempting to use love from a wisdom-oriented perspective. We're unifying wisdom and love. And in the sixth density, Ra says that all paradoxes are resolved. The concepts of good and bad, right and wrong, acceptable and unacceptable dissolve in the sixth density. Everything is seen to be the one infinite creator, and there's no judgment on anything at all. Everything is starting to unify once again. In the seventh density, we have what's called the gateway cycle. So this is the density of eternity or foreverness. And there's I don't have it with me right now, but I know that it's in the material. there are certain variable lengths of time that the densities move through. There are cycles for each of the densities, and Ra says they only have about, I think it's like 65 million years left in sixth density or something. And they really say only. They're like, we only have 65 million years left in our density, and we plan to be prepared for our graduation when the time comes from sixth to move into the seventh, right? So that's a long time. But it seems like forever to us. Right. So seventh density is the gateway cycle. You're merging back into the creator once again. And there's a little quote in here. Part of the material talks about black holes being visible manifestation of portions of the creator that are merging back into the one creator, and it manifests itself to our visual apparatus as a black hole. Good. Okay, so these are the 7 densities. Now, okay, so we have our brief overview of the densities, what kind of consciousness is involved with each density, and we need to also note at this point that the color spectrum is related to the 7 densities. So what we perceive as the 7 colors that come out of the prism of light, right? We've all seen the image, like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. The white light hits the triangle, and out of it comes all of the 7 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Right, so this is the physical representation of the vibrational nature or quality of each of the 7 densities. Now later we'll talk about the chakras, and you'll see that within the energy body we have what are called 7 chakras, and they match these colors. Right, we start at the base of the spine with red. And then we move into orange and the sexual organs, kind of below the navel point. Within the abdomen we have third chakra, yellow, heart, green, throat, blue, indigo is the third eye point, 6th chakra, and then violet is the crown chakra, top of the head. So the level of consciousness in each of the 7 densities is related to the consciousness in each of the 7 chakras, right? So these all need to be healed to some extent. They need to be open and activated and balanced depending on each individual's unique distortions or blocks or what needs to be healed, right? So this we need to know as well. We'll talk much more about the chakras later and how they relate to the 7 densities, but we just need to know for now that each of the 7 colors that we perceive are related to the 7 densities in their metaphysical form. Good. So, okay, we have 7 densities. Now we're going to talk about the transition from the 3rd to the 4th. And we on planet Earth are right at the end of our 3rd density cycle, moving into 4th. The 3rd density cycle of experience takes 75,000 years. This 75,000 year cycle is split into 3 25,000 year cycles. At the end of each 25,000 year cycle, Ra says there is what is called a harvest. Souls are harvested. So we are at the very, very end of the 75,000 year cycle. So this is our last opportunity, at least on this planet, in 3rd dimensional, 3rd density form, to graduate to 4th density. So we're in the very, very final days here, which is what makes all of this so important. Time is of the essence now. Good. So the harvest simply means that when a human leaves this incarnation now on planet Earth, the quality of their vibration, the nature of their vibrational being will determine whether or not they repeat their density or move into the 4th density, right? So the energy within the spirit, the mental understanding which brings the energy required to penetrate the kind of barrier from 3rd to 4th, this is what is being measured during the harvest. Let's say, let's just get some quotes from Ra, and gives a little more context to the harvest and the transition from 3rd to 4th. So visualize, if you will, the particular energy which form the tiny realm of creation governed by your council of Saturn. Continue seeing the rhythm of this process. The living flow creates a rhythm which is as inevitable as one of your timepieces. Each of your planetary entities began the first cycle when the energy nexus was able in that environment to support such mind-body experiences. Each of your planetary entities is on a different cyclical schedule, as you might call it. The timing of these cycles is a measurement equal to a portion of intelligent energy. This intelligent energy offers a type of clock. The cycles move as precisely as a clock strikes your hour. Thus, the gateway to intelligent energy Thus, the gateway from intelligent energy to intelligent infinity opens regardless of circumstance on the striking of the hour. Basically, the nature of the rhythm of our particular portion of the universe, which has local kind of vibrational laws, is the cause of the 325,000 year cycles. So we said planet Earth at the very end of its 75,000 year cycle. Don asks in session 10, what is the position of this planet with respect to progression of the cycle at this time? Ra says, this sphere is at this time in fourth dimension vibration. Its material is quite confused due to the social memory complexes embedded in its consciousness. It has not made an easy transition to the vibrations which beckon. Therefore, it will be fetched with some inconvenience. Don asks, is this convenience imminent within a few years? Ra says, this inconvenience or disharmonious vibratory complex has begun several of your years in the past. It shall continue unabated for a period of approximately 30 of your years. Don asks, after this 30-year period, I am assuming we will be a fourth dimensional or fourth density planet. Is this correct? Ra says, this is so, right? So this was in 1981, which means that by 2011, the planet was going to be fourth density. So obviously we're a little later than that. But if you take 25,000 years, a less than 1% differential for 25,000 years is plus or minus 5 years. So, we're just beyond this kind of 1% off. So Ra constantly had problems giving precise calculations because of how they perceive or don't perceive time and space from the sixth density. So they were sometimes correcting themselves. They would give a numerical figure and then in the next session say, oh, we were one digit off or we were slightly off and we're correcting it. So we believe, though, that it's very close, right, regardless. And, the Mayans also felt this. 2012, the Egyptians and the Tibetans knew something was going to happen around this time as well. So let's see. Don asks, session 17, am I to understand that the harvest will occur in the year 2011 or will it be spread? Ra says, this is an approximation. We have difficulty with your time-space. This is an appropriate, probable, or possible time-space nexus for harvest. Those who are not in incarnation at this time will be included in the harvest. So the harvest, now when the harvest occurs, every single human being will be harvested according to their particular vibratory frequency, right? So Ra says, those who finishing a cycle of experience, who demonstrate various grades of understanding of thought and action, will be separated by their own choice into the vibratory distortion most comfortable to their mind-body-spirit complexes. The spirit complex of each harvested entity moves along the line of light until the light grows too glaring, at which point the entity stops. This entity may have barely reached third density or may be very, very close to the ending of the third density light-love distortion complex. Nevertheless, those who fall within this octave of intensifying light-love then experience a major cycle during which the opportunities are many for the discovery of the distortions which are inherent in each entity and therefore the lessening of these distortions. Okay, it's a long quote and it's very wordy, right? So Ra's basically saying when we leave this incarnation, the spirit complex is basically judged or kind of put through some kind of vibrational test, right? So everyone taking up incarnation on Earth is here because we're at the very end of this cycle, and they're giving themselves the opportunity to have maybe one or two more incarnations left to progress into fourth, right? They talk about a seniority of incarnation process. So those who are vibrating at a higher frequency automatically float to the top. It's like when you put water with oil, right? The oil starts to separate, and so the people that are holding lower vibrations start to go to the bottom, and the ones who are ready to experience higher vibrations are moving to the top. So they're automatically going to take incarnations first, right? And it's going to go down from that point. So that's what's happening on Earth. We're at the end of this cycle, and we need to do our homework now. We need to remember who we are and what we are so that we can have the opportunity to graduate. Good. So this is the process of the harvest. Again, now there are three choices, or there are three potential results when we are harvested. All right, so we either repeat third density because we haven't learned the lessons that are necessary to move to fourth. If we've achieved the lessons of the vibrational quality necessary to move to fourth density, we have two paths. We can either go fourth density positive or fourth density negative. Now, this is where it gets very interesting, and it's absolutely vital that we understand this. We have to make this choice in the third density. We must choose one of these two paths. So what do we mean by fourth density positive and fourth density negative? Well, the positive path is often called the service to others path, right? So we've chosen to use love to serve others. We're using our heart, the heart chakra, the energy of love, forgiveness, compassion, acceptance, interconnectedness, togetherness to help other people, right? This is how we graduate fourth density positive. To graduate fourth density negative, we absolutely block off the heart chakra, and we're using the lower three energy centers, the energy from the first three chakras, to manipulate and control and distort other people for the benefit of the self. So these are what we would usually call evil people, right? So evil people, or the Illuminati, or the Cabal, or whatever. These are negative people who are seeking to graduate along the negative path. So this was very profound to me when I first read it, because it gave me a much more relaxed interpretation. It kind of threw into relief the idea of negativity and evil in this world. When I was younger, I used to absolutely rage at the state of things in America. I could see the political corruption. I could see the ecological destruction, the financial corruption, and I would just be furious because it was obvious that there was so much unfairness in the system, and that the people at the top were working for the benefit of themselves blatantly and with total disregard. It was almost like they weren't even trying to hide it anymore. It was so obvious, and I would try to get other people to, become aware of this, and nobody was really interested, so I would get really frustrated. And once I read this, I just was able to very easily integrate into my consciousness, wow, okay, those people who are at the top and who are, taking all the money, and who are manipulating perception through the media, and who are taking all the resources and have 40 houses and 90 yachts and 100 planes, or whatever the situation might be, they're just people who are pretty high on the negative polarity. And they're attempting to reach fourth density negative. And I thought, okay, well, no problem. All I can do is what I can do. All I can do is focus on my journey instead of being upset about what other people are doing. So it gave me a lot of relief from that sort of frustration and anger towards others who are simply, really, essentially just not doing what I would do. So, of course, that there's a deeper discussion to be had there about truth and justice, and the serving of justice, and the opportunity, or the sort of balancing of the equal opportunities that each person should have in life, because we don't have that on Earth right now, but I think that time is coming. Right, so these are the three paths, and this is why we would want to practice the healing exercises that will be in the next or in the coming videos. Right, we as people of service to others. Again, if you're watching this, I can almost guarantee someone who is along the service to others path, or who is desiring to follow that path, to seek the heart of yourself, and to use that love that you find to help other people. Right? That's why we have come to Earth, and that's what we're here to do, is to make this choice. So we need to make that choice now. Good. Let's see. Beautiful quote here from Ra. Well, let's see. First, we'll do this quote. Don says, "How does the third density planet become a fourth density planet?" Ra says, "The fourth density is as regularized in its approach as the striking of a clock upon the hour. The space-time of your solar system has enabled this planet to spiral into space-time of a different vibrational configuration. This causes the planetary sphere to be able to be molded by these new distortions. However, the thought forms of your people during this transition period are such that the mind-body-spirit complexes of both individual and societies are scattered throughout the spectrum, instead of becoming able to grasp the needle, shall we say, and point the compass in one direction. Thus, the entry into the vibration of love, sometimes called by your people the vibration of understanding, is not effective with the present societal complex. Thus, the harvest shall be such that many will repeat the third density cycle. The energies of your wanderers, your teachers, and your adepts at this time are all bent upon increasing the harvest. However, there are few to harvest. So if you're watching this, you're one of the few, I'm sure, that is ready for harvest, who is of the vibrational quality or vibrational potential to achieve harvest from third density into fourth. And this was in 1981. I feel at this point in 2018 that this has increased a lot, and I think if Ra were to be speaking now, they would be willing to say that, okay, there's actually things are going much better than we had felt they were in the early 1980s. A lot of people are waking up to the truth of this and about the unity that's required for humanity to progress, right? So we have all our different societal structures. We have America, we have Russia, we have China, we have North Korea, we have all the different world religions. We have Christianity, we have Islam, we have Buddhism, we have Judaism, and each one feels totally separate from the other, and it feels that their particular mode of thinking is right and the other one is wrong, right? So this is pure third density, third dimensional vibrational qualities, right? So we're still a long ways off, I think, from coming together as a species and seeking in one direction. When that happens, fourth density will be here in an instant. Good. So all we can do is our part to evolve and to bring the energy to the planet and allow the energy to spread, and let others, when they're ready, pick up the baton and start the race. Okay, good. This is a great quote. Session 14, Ra says, I am Ra. The harvest is now. There is not at this time any reason to include efforts towards longevity, but rather to encourage distortions towards seeking the heart of self. For this which resides clearly in the violet ray energy field will determine the harvesting of each mind-body-spirit complex. So I mentioned in the first video, Jim McCarty said that Ra was telling them often, hinting to them very often, that the questions that you should be asking, they need to be important. If they're not important 10,000 years from now, then don't bother asking them. So I think this is something that we can take to heart, right? If the questions that you're asking yourself about your life wouldn't be important 10,000 years from now, then perhaps they're not really that important. So this idea about like what kind of job am I going to get? How am I going to get enough money to survive on this planet? I really want that car, or like I'm saving to get these clothes, or I want that girlfriend or that boyfriend, or I hope they look this way or that way. And these are all transient things. So these are all temporary things on Earth, and that's not to say that we should pull away from that. We're humans, and we have still human desires, and that's perfectly fine. But we need to include on some level the questions that will allow us to, as Ra says, seek the heart of self. Who am I? What am I doing here? What does all of this mean for me? What is in my soul? What does my soul desire? What does my spirit desire? These are the kinds of questions that will lead one to a vibratory quality, energy quality that will allow us to be harvestable to the fourth density. Good. Don asks, could you tell us the best way to seek the heart of self? Ra says, we can only say the material for your understanding is the self, the mind-body-spirit complex. We have given you information upon healing. This information may be seen in a more general context as ways to understand the self. The understanding, experiencing, accepting, and merging of self and with other self, and finally with the Creator, is the path to the heart of self. In each infinitesimal part of yourself resides the One and all of its power. Therefore, we can only encourage these lines of contemplation. So this is a really amazing quote too. The understanding, experiencing, accepting, and merging of self with self first. Right? So we have to understand ourselves, we have to experience ourselves, we have to accept ourselves and merge with ourselves. We have to be okay with who we are, we have to be okay with our humanness, with our imperfectness, and realize that we're a being of infinite potential, and there's this infinite unconditional love vibration moving through us. Once we do that, we start to merge with others. We start to see others as a reflection of that love, that infinite potential. We start to, because we found it in ourselves, we reflect it back onto others. And after that, we start to merge with the Creator. We start to seek for our connection to the infinite. Our finite self, it starts to vibrate at an infinite quality. The mind starts to perceive things with a much broader perspective, and it starts to catch glimpses of the infinite everywhere that we look. So this is the path, they say, to the heart of self. Just by the key is to seek the self, right, within the self. Okay, I think that's a good place to end for now. So we've talked about the 7 densities. We've talked about the consciousness in each of the 7 densities. We've mentioned the colors in relation to the 7 densities, that the 7 colors along the spectrum that we see are the visual representations of the energy or the vibration of the 7 densities, right? And we've talked about the harvest in 3rd density that's occurring right now. We're transitioning from 3rd to 4th. And we've also mentioned briefly about the choice that we have to make. In the next video, I want to go more in depth about the 3rd density choice that we make. There are some quotes here that I think are helpful to understanding why this is important and why we must make this choice, right? And then what happens after we make this choice in the higher densities. Good. Okay, thanks again. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope this helped. If you have questions or comments or concerns, please leave a comment below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, I'll see you soon with video number 4. Goodbye.